I am presenting on the behalf of Alexandre and Bella, who are co-leaders of Work Package 5. So we are presenting the generic guidance that is being finalized from existing methodologies to evaluate new RTB hybrids, engaging breeders with food scientists and RTB users. And among the RTB users, I can enumerate farmers, processors, and consumers. So the communication of today is entitled A Guidance for Food Product Evaluation from Advanced RTB Clones with Crop Users. Our communication will focus on 6 main points as shown on this slide. We will have a context, the objective of the guideline, the steps of the guideline development, then the topics that were discussed or addressed, then we will present some difficulties and the way forward. So, Work Package 5 is entitled Gender Equitable Positioning, Promotion and Performance, and it focuses on the final stages of crop selection within the breeding process. After selection of clones within breeding programs using diverse criteria such as agronomic performance, tolerance to pests and disease, there is a need to validate the clones for processability. That is, how easy is the processing? What is the clone's profitability and how much drudgery is involved? And second, the final product quality in terms of physicochemical, nutritional, sensorial qualities, and even microbial qualities. Then comes the idea of developing a methodology that integrates the relevant, where relevant, the results of the ongoing crops program evaluations. The objective being to provide a support to RTB food partners for the evaluation of the clones identified with the most promising characteristics to reach end users. Concretely, the evaluation will be done at several levels with different actors on raw or fresh material during processing and on food products using various methodology as shown on this table. You see that we will have laboratory level, on-field level, and evaluation with scientists or champion processors or even consumers. Let me present some steps that was followed for the guideline development. First, the idea came out during the second annual meeting held in Uganda, and it was consolidated by the work package leaders or co-leaders and the PMU, that is Eglantine, Dominique. Then third, the work package 5 leader did the first draft. They elaborated the first draft in June 2021. Then the second draft was elaborated in August based on the contributions of some scientists. We sent the draft that we had, and some people sent their inputs, and we did a consolidated draft that is being presented today, 3rd September 2021. So for the next steps, we will be finalizing the guidelines using the outputs of all the work package leaders, because we will have to send the document again to them. We will also send the document to product champions, to project focal points, and again to the PMU for inputs. And the last point, it will be by the end of this month of September, the final document, which would be available and shared within our community for implementation. So the topics that were addressed within the framework of these guidelines are about 6. The first one is the main characteristics to be included in the evaluation for each product profile. So at this step, previous work for each product profile should be done. The product champion should define and select the main characteristics that will have to be checked during the WP5 evaluation for each level of evaluation. Then these characteristics will be the results of WP1 product profile development. And for each of them, a sub should have been developed through WP2 and WP3. The next topic that was discussed was the trial composition. Special trials have to be settled within the framework of WP5 for short cycle crops. The clones to be analyzed and evaluated should be ideally 3 to 4 clones proposed for release, combined with 1 local best clone chosen normally by the champion processors, or combined with 1 common or popular clone in the region where the evaluation will be taking place. Then the quantity of raw material dedicated for evaluation was also discussed. And at that stage, we thought that plot size should be big enough to provide enough raw material to process a representative quantity of food products. Also, the trial design was addressed, and here evaluation from sprouting, planting to harvest using regular breeding and agronomic evaluation protocols will be used. It is better to make plots larger with less replication than small plots with more replications. We may discuss this at the end of the presentation. Then agronomic evaluation. It should be done under the supervision of breeders and agronomists. That is WP4. They should be very, very implicated at this stage. Agronomic data also should be assessed and accessible for WP5 evaluation, because yield, dry matter, roof borne size, evaluation and pest and disease, plant height, and other standard parameters can be useful. They can be useful for WP5 evaluation. They can help to explain some results obtained, such as the yield of the product, the texture properties of the product, of the food product, the behavior of the food product during processing, and other parameters. The fourth topic addressed was the evaluation of raw material harvested. And this is the real WP5 evaluation methodology starting here. There, the evaluation should be done on raw material, and we will do characterization on the field for some characteristics if portable devices are available. Then the analysis or the evaluation on raw material can also be done in the laboratory, but before then, preliminary questions and constraints should be addressed. Example, which stabilization pattern of the sample according to lab protocol will be used? That is, are we going to use fresh, lyophilized, or dried matter? Second, the quantity of roots, tuber, and bananas needed to satisfy laboratory sampling, processing, and consumer testing. So we need to have a good quantity in order not to be in shortage. Then another constraint that should be addressed is the logistical aspect. For example, the distance between the field and the laboratory, the availability of some equipment, and even the availability of lab technicians. So all this should be first addressed before engaging or implementing the laboratory raw material characterization. The fifth topic that was addressed concerned processing evaluation. And here, we really pointed or focused on the number of clones, because we will be talking about the promising clones from the breeding programs, the best local clone, as I said, identified by the champion processors, and the common or local popular clone in the region. The processing techniques or methodologies should be well described also. The point of data and sample collection should be well defined with WP2 team and WP5 leaders before implementation. Then we talked about the evaluation levels with users. And there we think about two levels. One in the rural community with champion processors, and another one in the rural and urban localities with consumers. Then how to select the processors, the champion processors that will help us to do the processing evaluation. We discussed about it also. Then the processing condition arrangement. We need to identify the champion processors before the harvest of the trial. We need to inform them about their role in the WP5 processing work. They need to sign a RTB consent form before cooperation, and we that are coming to work with them, we should arrange a compensation for their work that will be done. We can negotiate with them and have a proportional compensation for them. Then the evaluation of the processing of obtained products with the champion processors. This should also be done. We will also monitor times and quantities, product yield, and relative amount of robbery. So it's very, very important for processing evaluation. The sixth topic addressed concerned the consumer testing. And we discussed in the document about the design. It should be according to the number of clone or products to be evaluated. It is important to have at least consumer testing sessions with around 100 persons per product profile. The number of respondents necessary also depends on the number of clones that will be evaluated. Then the product preparation for consumer testing. At that level, we should try to standardize as much as possible the conditions of preparation of the end products to be evaluated in the field. Then when it comes to consumer testing sampling, for one product profile, it is necessary to investigate at least 100 consumers per location, as I said. So to develop these guidelines, we had some few difficulties. And the first one is related to the implementation of the guideline itself. According to the number of clones to be tested, the methodology will have to be adapted in order to compare 1 or 2 local best variety and 3 clones. In this case, if we have more than 6 candidates clones to be evaluated, we should use the 3-cut methodology that will be applied, and it needs specific sampling for consumer testing and a specific statistical analysis approach. Then the second difficulty that we had concerned COVID-19. It really limited the mobility, our mobility, and we couldn't meet face-to-face to work on the document. Then we had the delay of the availability of the draft due to holidays of some partners, and some requests remain up till today without responses. So those are the few difficulties that we encountered during the elaboration of the guidelines, of the guidance. So what are the way forward? We will ask partners to prepare the list of available standard operation procedures. Then they should also make available the list of interesting criteria to follow during processing. And they should also discuss with the WP5 co-leaders regarding the trials, the protocols, the number of clones to be evaluated, the processing methodology before going to field evaluation. And as I said, when it comes to tree-cut methodology, we are requesting PMU to support a workshop on data processing that will concern ranking and consumer testing. So I can't end our presentation without thanking all the project partners, product champions, focal points, and work package leader, as well as the PMU. Thank you very much, Eglantine and Dominique, for your assistance. Special thanks also goes to Aurélie Bischoff and Thierry Trans for their valuable comments. Our gratitude also goes to all the contributing projects, Next Gen Cassava, Africa Yam, and others that I've not mentioned here, because many of the costs, such as trial and staff time, have been covered by these other projects and has contributed to insights that allow us to write these guidelines. So thank you very much for your kind attention.
Thank you, Gérard, and thanks to your co-leaders for this introduction to the guidance, which, let's remind it, aims at taking more into consideration the quality of the crop at the final stages of the breeding pipeline. And in particular, you mentioned it, the processing ability or the processability of the raw root or raw tuber, raw finger, and the quality of the final product. So I propose now to have a discussion on these proposed methodological steps and maybe discuss the feasibility, how much these steps could be implemented easily and reliably at the final stage of the breeding pipeline to assess the post-harvest quality of new clones. So I think we'd love to hear breeders, feedback from breeders here today on what has been presented. I thought Bella would be here, but I think he could not join. Gérard, we have...
No, Bella will not be joining because he's in a process of interview recruitment.
Okay.
So he will not be joining us. But if there's questions that Alexandre and I cannot give answers, he can give the answers through an email later. That's what he told me.
Okay, perfect.
Then I would like to add something, Eglantine.
Yes, please, Gérard.
The guidelines, the draft, the consolidated draft will be sent to all those that I enumerated in my presentation. We need their inputs. We need their inputs to finalize the document. Thank you.
Okay, well, noted. So let's start with questions. There are questions in the chat box. A first question from Dominique. How will you link the data produced in the lab, in the laboratory, and data obtained from consumers? consumer testing. How do you link these two types of data, lab data and consumer testing data?
Are you getting me?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much, Dominique, for that question. I think that WP2 will really help us to do the correlation between those two types of data, the data obtained from the field and the data obtained in the lab. That's why during formal discussions, we were trying to have Christian Mestre who can help us to make a link between the data in the lab and the data from the field.
Dominique, is it okay for you? Does it answer your question, or do you want to ask something more?
Yes, I think we must also create database with this data, because at the end we need to replace all the consumer testing by some formal analysis in the lab, and we need to create this database to have the evaluation only by the lab and not by the consumer, because it's very hard to have 100 consumer all the time for all of evaluation. And we hope to discover correlation between lab measurement and consumer testing. This is the objective of this World Package 5.
Yeah.
Yes, and there's a complementary comment from Michael saying that's a very complete guidance that covers many different issues, but he says that we are looking to validate the lab protocols with the consumer testing. So there is a need for some analysis to correlate these two types of data. So that's going in the same way as what Dominique mentioned.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mike.
And Eglantine, yes. If you allow me, please.
Please.
That's why we said we should do the analysis on material in the lab and in the same material on the field. That is to have the link between these two types of analysis. Thank you.
Good. A question from Claire Herché. Did you consider a guidance for engagement with officials, so those in charge of variety release, both to educate them about the methodologies and to receive their inputs? So the officials in charge of varietal release. How to engage with them? Have you considered that in the method, or is it a next step, or how do you?
It may be the next step. It may be the next step, because they should be informed about the results from the various clones or from the various promising clones. They should be informed. I think it will be the next step.
A question from Busi, but I don't get it very well. So Busi, maybe you need to speak directly. Busi is asking, since this is a collaborative effort, who owns the data? I think Busi, do you want to speak directly to ask to maybe bring precisions on your question? The data generated on new hybrids, you mean?
Thank you, Eglantine. Good afternoon, colleagues. I am referring because you see we are linking data coming from the field with data coming from the lab. We have the breeders producing the material which we use in the lab. And so then now we process, we do the consumer acceptability, we go all the way out, we complete the cycle. So the question comes, once that data is there, is it the breeder who owns the data within that setting before it gets to RTB? Is it the food scientist? Is it the person in the field who's conducting the experiment? Like in this case, let me say Bella or Tessie. That's my question. I don't know if it is clear now.
Okay, thank you very much, Lucy. I will say something in French, and I think Eglantine will translate it for me. There's a word in French, la copropriété. It is the co-propriety of the breeders and the food scientists. That's what I think. I don't know if somebody else can give another answer, but for me, it's a co-propriety. The two are the owners of the data.
I think Bosi is thinking more about how to manage this data. Who will introduce the data in the database? Because we are now working on breed base, and normally each laboratory department is going with data in this breed base. The breeder are putting all the breeding activities. The lab, we need to develop the structure of the base, but I think each laboratory, each work package need to enter this database. And at the moment, there is data manager in the center to do that. But really, the data are free, no? They are normally from the project, they are open access, and we need to find a way to collect all the data together and to put them in breed base, whatever from where they are coming.
Pussy raised her hand. Yes, Pussy, please.
Yes, that is one angle, Dominic, but I think it becomes, we need to discuss, like, for example, when it comes to publications, and manuscripts have to be prepared using that data. Who takes the responsibility there? There's data coming in from the other discipline, from the food science, there's data coming in from breeding, there's data coming in from the social part, the social scientists.
Dominique?
I think it's really the purpose of a publication is from where are the data and who are the owner of the data, who are the author of the publication, and is maybe a negotiation for each document that we want to produce. But at the end, the data is open access, and we need to put them on the database. But for publication, obviously, is a traditional way for publication and discussion with the co-authorship and the ownership of the intellectual property. Is it okay, Busi?
Okay. Yeah, I don't know if I can give more clarity on actually a live. We recently had an experience where we worked with a breeder on processing and then doing the sensory, doing the consumer acceptability. And then we produced a manuscript from that work, and we put the breeder as a co-author. And the breeder could not review the manuscript because the question arose that who owns the data? So this is a practical situation, so that as we continue to collaborate in different disciplines, we can also be handling the issues which arise. Over.
Yes, this is really a specific problem for publication, and I think it's not linked with the methodology, only that it's pluridisciplinary, and we need to decide the team who is writing, who is editing, with reviewing, and I think it's need to be clear before the writing of the manuscript. But it's different from the World Package 5 methodology. It's not linked to that, is linked to the pluridisciplinarity.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it's a broader issue. But thanks, Busi, for raising this. Let's go back to the first question, let's say from Dominique, and Michael is mentioning that maybe some of the clones need to be bad ones so that it could allow a better correlation analysis. And if they are all good, it might be difficult to validate the protocols, says Michael. And Tessie, he's asking, do you think it's necessary to consider both preferred varieties together with less preferred ones during the evaluation? Gérard, that's a really precise question for you.
Yes, I think I will allow Alexander to answer to that one. Alexander.
Yes, thank you, Michael, for the question, and also Tessie. I think it's a good point to see if it's important or not to have bad varieties. On my side, I think that was the objective of the work package 1, in order to obtain the different characteristics, and also to make the different diagnosis of the different process for the different product profiles. For the work package 5, the main objective is to see if the new clones, the new hybrids, have a good behavior to obtain the desired product profile. So for that, one of the results of work package 5 will be a ranking of the different clones and the local varieties. And with the local varieties, we will have the possibility to see if a new clone is better or not better than the local variety. But for the needs of the correlation with the different analyses that will be developed in work package 2 and 3, I think this is a very good question. Maybe it could be very interesting to introduce in the set of evaluation a bad variety with a good one. We have to discuss that with work package 2 and 3, I think, in order to see if their new protocols are very adapted for the evaluation. But this is one of the limits of our methodology today.
Thank you, Alexandre.
I think the good clones are very few. When we evaluate new hybrids, many times they are not equivalent to the good one and the landrace, and many times they are inferior, and it's not a problem to include bad clones. The problem is to find very good and very similar clone to the landrace.
More feedback on this? Otherwise, there's another question. A question from Brigitte, who says that each country has its own release procedure and requirements. How does the work package 5 methodology take this into account?
If I can say something, Eglantine.
Yes, Gérard.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Brigitte, for that point, which is very, very important. I think that during the guidance development, we've thought about that. That's why we think that all the evaluation steps should be included in this WP5 methodology. That is agronomy with integrated agronomy, the lab analysis we have integrated, field analysis, consumer testing, everything. We are trying to integrate everything such that for almost all the countries, the release procedures should be taken into account. So that's why we think that this WP5 methodology, who is taking into account all the steps of evaluation, can be helpful in every country. That's what I can say for now. Thank you.
Thank you. Didier, yes.
Yeah, can I add something? I think it should be also interesting to include a clone, an additional clone common to the different region or country in which evaluation will be made. So you have the same reference, and it will be useful to compare the variety and the protocol between region and country.
Didier, do you mean a common reference for all the countries, right?
Yeah, I mean a common clone to have the same reference.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
The clone can be a bad or a good. That is not important. It's just to have the same clone.
Okay.
What do you think, Gérard or Alexandre?
Yes, Alex. So maybe at country level, it will be possible to have a same clone between two main regions. But I'm not sure that it will be possible between the different countries with different product profile. So it will be very difficult. And but within the methodology that we wrote, we plan to try to, where possible, not to use a new clone in different regions, but to use a local variety that is widely used in the country. So maybe it could be a way to have a common variety in order to compare better between regions. But between countries, it seems to be very difficult, I think.
I agree with you, Alexander. It will be very difficult between countries, but in the same country, a common reference clone can be used. I agree with you.
Good, thank you, Didier, for this comment. Any other comment or question for Gérard and Alexandre? Otherwise, I have one. Okay. Looks like Michael is making a comment in the chat box. He says that if the purpose is to validate work package 2 and work package 3 protocols, then we need a range for quality. If the purpose is to add work package 5 guidance to breeding evaluation protocols to define what varieties to submit for release, then we do not waste a clone by including a bad one. For group discussion. So Michael, do you want to maybe to clarify what do you mean by the last part of your comment?
Yeah, I hear from the discussion that it seems the purpose here is looking more at, okay, how do we do that final evaluation of the which clones to select? Then I agree that we wouldn't want to, since it's so complicated, you need so much material, we wouldn't want to waste like a position with, looking for a bad clone. And I also saw comments in the chat that many people said, well, there are not that many of those kind of available, unless we have one from the breeding that we kind of threw out because it was bad. I'm still concerned that you've done a lot of extensive work in work package 2 and 3. There's a lot of information in work package 1, but is there a stage where you want to now take the best clones and see if the consumer testing corresponds well to some protocol in the lab, right? Or do you feel already confident that you already have that correlation? So I'm just putting that not necessarily for discussion here, but for something to consider going forward. What is the ultimate purpose of work package 5, and are the protocols well validated? If they're not, it might, you take advantage of the best clones and see if putting them in through the field for their lab test and the consumer testing still holds up right? That's, I know we already kind of gone through a few times. Just kind of wanted to kind of summarize that issue. Thanks.
Thank you.
I would like to hear Dominique after Michael's comments.
Yes,
Dominique?
Michael. I think our package 5 is mainly to improve the database because all the project is based on prediction. We need to predict quality and we need to develop medium or high throughput methodology. And at one moment, we need to be sure that the predictions are good and we need to improve them. And it's a cycle, no? If you have a good prediction, you will have good clone at the end, and we need to improve this cycle by producing data and increasing prediction probability for the different tools that we are developing. And the final evaluation is really to be sure that we are in the right way, and that's how methods are predicting the good clone and what we want to evaluate and what we want to deliver with the national program of release. And because sometimes we have predictions say this one will be good and it's not. And really, it's to improve the methods and to improve the methodology. At the end, in 10 years, we hope to use only the predictive method and not using the lab, not using the panel, not using the consumer, to develop a tool very robust to predict quality for some traits very important for one product profile. This is the aim of Work Package 5. Over.
Thanks, Dominique. Okay.
Adetona, you raised your hand. Sumpura, sorry.
Yeah, everybody. So I'm very good presentation, Gérard. I'm very appreciate your presentation. So my question concerns the sampling about the consumer testing. You are planning to take 100 consumer for one product, or you have many product. I think for me is a little too much. So what strategy or what mechanism do you want to do this work? Do you get me, Gérard? Tu m'as compris?
Très bien.
Merci.
I've got you very well, Adetona.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. If I can say something, I think we had the discussion with Aurélie, Alexandre, and Bella. And I think for a consumer testing, we need to have at least 60 people. And we said we should do that for product, the 100 is for the product profile and per region. I think that it should be the minimum, because if we want to have very strong correlations or very strong data, we need to have a number, an acceptable number of people participating to the consumer testing. If Alexander can add something.
Yes, during the discussion with Aurélie, and also based on our experience in Work Package 1 and the Activity 5, because I remember that in Work Package 1 and Activity 5, the objective was to interview at least 150 consumers in each region. So we think that we need to keep this size of sampling. So 100 seems to be good, but there is another thing that we have to integrate in the design of the sampling. That if it's the number of clones that we will have to evaluate in the set, because if we have a set with a number of clones that is more than 7 clones, it will be we will have to conduct a tri-cut methodology. So for that, we will need to interview more than 100 consumers in order to have a statistical robust results. So for that, it's Bella who developed this methodology and published it in the last International Journal of Food Science and Technology. So I think we will have to. It's why in the presentation, Gérard explained that it's very important that each team, before the field experimentation, have to discuss to the Work Package 5 team coordination in order to well prepare and to well define the sampling for this consumer testing. Because according the number of clone and according the product profile, we will have to design exactly the sampling. Over.
I think the number is not a problem. It's easy to have 100 consumers in the field or in the city, in the urban area. The more difficult part is to develop the questionnaire for these people and to have a guidance for response for the quality of the product. And this is the work need to be done before the testing, and all the quality of the result will be on the questionnaire.
Yes, and in order to complete for the consumer testing, we have to say that it will be less heavy than the consumer testing that we used in the Work Package 1. That means that we will have less, for example, for the kata, we will have less descriptors, so it will be shorter, and we'll only have an hedonic scale in order to evaluate each clone, so it will be easier to conduct, and it will take less time on the field.
Yes, it will be easier. 100 is not a big number.
Thank you. D'accord. Thank you.
Thank you, Sunkura, for raising this question. Thank you, Alexandre and Dominique, for answering. I think it's nearly time. It's more than time, let's say. So if I understood well, Gérard, Alexandre, this generic guidance is now to be fine-tuned, or let's say adapted per product profile.
Yeah.
And so my question is, who is the first team who will be putting this guidance into practice for clone evaluation on the field? And in other words, who will do the crash tests of this guidance?
But the next evaluation, what are the next evaluation? Yam, sweet potato? What are the next evaluation with farmer?
I think that for now, the teams, they will give us the information. I don't know if I think Tessie last time she was contacting me asking if the guidance was ready. I don't know, Tessie, are you around?
Yeah, yes, I'm around.
Okay.
Yes, the guidance, we are going to be the first to use the guidance. Already we're on it.
Oui.
So we had your draft, the draft you sent, and we even went beyond the draft so that we don't lose anything. We're the first who's going to try it. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Gerard. Thank you for this.
Thank you, Tessie.
Okay, see if there is no more urgent questions or comments, let's thank Work Package 5 coordination team. So we are all looking forward to reading the full guidance, the final version. So let's remind everybody the timeline you gave us, Gérard. So first you will circulate the guidance to other
Today, I will circulate it today.
Okay, today to Work Package leaders looking to receiving their feedbacks by mid-September, 15th.
That is the 15th of September, yes.
Good, and only after you receive their feedback, maybe integrate their inputs. By the end of September, you will be in capacity to circulate the last version of the guidance. Is it?
Exactly, Eglantine, exactly.
Okay, good. So let's keep this in mind, colleagues. Gérard, Alexandre, and Bella will be looking forward to receiving our feedbacks. And in particular, I'm talking to work package coordinators here today.